What's up, internet? My name's Ori. Welcome back to the channel. It is Tuesday, August 6th, day number 22 inside the Big Brother house. I don't even know where to start. The house got turned up on its head after a wild veto ceremony and house meeting. And then let's get ready to rumble. Angela versus Quinn, Tucker versus Cedric, Kenney versus Brooklyn, TK versus Chemo in kind of a Cold War. Let's go over all the intel, drama, and more from yesterday's live feeds. But first, if you are new here, hit that subscribe button. You like this video, hit that like button, hit that notification bell. You'll never miss a video. You'll never miss a stream. Oh my God. What a day it was on the feeds. Let's go over it. Little recap if you're just catching up on everything that's been going on. Cedric won HOH. He nominated Angela, Kenney, and Tucker, all volunteering for different reasons of their own. Tucker won veto, and he wanted to do something big with it, right? He didn't just want to, use the veto, take himself off the block. He wanted to do something kind of crazy. After forming the ball players or whatever they were calling themselves with Cedric, Cam, and Kenney, Tucker wanted to take Angela down off the block so that Quinn could get put up as the replacement nominee because he's a snake and he has a power. But Cam and more so Cedric didn't love the idea. Cedric especially was kind of stuck between just going with MJ, who kind of the rest of the house wanted, and Quinn, who this new alliance and Tucker, who the veto holder, now wanted to get that ball rolling. Let's jump into what happened because there's a lot. There's a lot that went down. First off, before the actual ceremony, like we said, Cedric was not really feeling it. He wanted to kind of see if he could put the brakes on this, right? They realized like, hey, maybe Quinn's up to some dirty tricks, but right now is not the time to do it. He knows too much. It would blow up too much if they would put him on the block. So it really just it wasn't going to be good for them because they couldn't even get in with the other collective members and talk to them about it because there's a lot of stuff that would blow up their games if they started talking about that. They couldn't even get with the other Pentagon members because they weren't sure how much Brooklyn knew. Chelsea, they weren't even 100% sure on, and they weren't able to get to talk to her the night of this all going down. So they really were. Cedric was like, "Hey, let's see if I can just get it back to MJ. It's the safest thing. We can flush out her power and go from there. I don't have to put up the nominee. No blood on my hands." Cedric tells Tucker, "Hey, we don't have the votes. Like, I don't think you should do this. Like, we shouldn't go through with it." And Tucker literally walks away from him going, I don't give an F. I'm doing it anyway. Feeds go down for the veto ceremony. What happened at the veto ceremony, you ask? Well, it turns out a lot. So Tucker did use the veto on Angela. He didn't use it on himself. MJ was named as the replacement nominee by Cedric. She then used her America veto power, meaning she's off the block. Someone will be voted in as the third nominee by us fans watching the show. After that, it must have got even more crazy. Apparently, Cedric kind of kept everybody in the living room to call kind of like a house meeting to kind of fill in like what just happened there. I guess Tucker was going off. Lots of things were exposed. Pretty much everything on this board, all of these alliances, plus the new ones that were made, like Shake It Up and the play ballers, the ball players, whatever they're calling themselves. All of that was pretty much blown up. Quinn's power was blown up. The fact that Tucker knew from Chemo was all thrown out there as well. Lots of different people were apparently taking shots at each other. Almost all the alliances, except for it seems like Pentagon and the Collective, they did not get revealed. It seems like somehow everybody in those groups kept a cooler head and was like, I'm not saying a word. So that could be good for a lot of them. And I think actually in the long run is going to wind up helping pretty much all of their members long term. Once the feeds actually came back, it seemed like it was all kind of over. That a lot of it that all took place on off the feeds when they were down for the ceremony. Once they came back up, peace was trying to be made, right? Tucker was still kind of going off about how like he was blindsided by Cedric and they thought they were pulling this big move. Said that Quinn was too strong and too good and he had the power. They kind of hug and, kind of chill. And it seems like things are going to kind of be relaxed, right? People start to spread out and like make their way around the house. And some people actually started to move to the kitchen and kind of hang out there, maybe get a nice refreshing glass of water, probably had a big fight. You're all overheated and exhausted. But guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Ding, 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 ding. It is time for our first battle of the evening in a rematch from a previous bout earlier in the season. We have Quinn, the Snake, versus the Hurricane, Angela. This is the second bout between these two this season that we know of, at least. And listen, we didn't get a whole lot of this one. This one did cut away. They ended up going to a conversation with Tucker, talking to MJ about just everything that happened and kind of his perspective, how Cedric, uh, blindsided him. He thought that Quinn was going up and he had the power and all this other stuff was going to happen. And it was so loud, though, from the Quinn Angela fight that was happening in the kitchen. We did see a little bit to start where Quinn was pretty much saying, like, yeah, you know what? Maybe I was doing some stuff in the game, but you're putting a lot more on me that has nothing to do with the game, and I don't like that. Potentially, maybe there was some stuff brought up about like the whole group conversation. I'm not 100% sure, but also I'm sure there were lots of shots being taken during the whole ceremony and house meeting. So this was just kind of like an overflow. Later, though, they do kind of apologize and kind of make up to each other. And Quinn actually makes a kind of funny joke. He's like, Angela, like before today, like we were on an upturn, and then all of a sudden now we're back at it. And like she kind of like shakes them, but they hug, and seems like that got squashed. All the fights that did happen seemed like they all kind of made amends at least a little bit, just to keep peace. Eventually, later in the day. Angela, though, then does go have a chat with Cedric, and she roasts him pretty much. She full on roasted Cedric about how dumb he was, not putting Quinn up. She was like, this was the golden apple that you had in front of you, and you threw it away. You threw it away. She's so mad at him for doing that. She tells him that he needs better allies to talk things through because this was dumb. Which was all pretty funny. And Cedric's just like, yeah, I don't know. I got scared or whatever. He was just telling her what she needed to hear. Quinn, though, he has a lot of work to do, right? He lied to a lot of people. He had lots of alliances. Almost all of them seem like they were blown up. Again, except for Penta and except for the collective, it feels like everything else was pretty much put out on the table. Like all of it was out there. Lots of other different rumors and accusations were thrown out there too. Things that people had said about other people. So it got messy, got real messy. And I'm excited to see what we end up seeing on the show because, oh boy, from the sounds of it, a lot got out there. And there was lots of conversations, like people trying to figure out like what was going on, right? Lots of random convos about everything. Quinn was trying to make amends with all the people. And for the most part, he just was kind of pledging his loyalty to the people that were in the collective, apologizing, for maybe not telling them about the power. And pretty much at the end of the day, he never wanted to use it. And that now he's going to use the power for whatever the group wants to do. He'll get all the blood on his hands. Just somebody in the collective or the Pentagon, right? Like whoever he was talking to at that moment. You go, you win it so that, the people who need to go up aren't safe, and then he'll use the power, get all the blood on his hands by putting up either MJ, Angela, Tucker, or Kenney, whatever combo is still left after this week. That's what he'll do with his power moving forward. And it was wild. And I think for the most part, I think he might be getting away with this a little bit. He's downplaying a lot of it with humor, telling people how dumb it was, And he's like, listen, yeah, was I doing a lot? Sure. I was doing lots of lying, but very minimal here, right? The only thing was I didn't tell everybody I had the power. Told some people, didn't tell everybody. But you know, it is what it is. And at the end of the day, he didn't even want to use it. But it seems like he's actually coming out a little bit okay here. It seems like things are good. As far as outside of the collective go, it's a little bit of a different story. Rubina seemed to take it really hard. She's someone who in the game very much valued like honesty and trust. And she felt like it really hurt to kind of be lied to with about a lot of things. Plus, I think it's tough because she's so close to Tucker, and seeing that whole thing happen. Plus, just the idea that Tucker had this whole scheme going on with the boys to go after Quinn that she had nothing to know about, and that she was trying to really kind of work with Quinn and Tucker and bring them together. Just feels like it's a lot for her. Also, I think she feels like she's got a really good shot at being the one to be put up as America's replacement nominee because she's not doing a lot in the game. And yeah, it's just I think it's a lot for Rubina handling this. Like I said, everyone was trying to figure out like who knew what when and how different pieces of information got around. Leah and Cam had a little bit of a repeat of their Love Island spat that we saw the other day. Like, please just can we get them to Casa Amor? They're just please do something with this because it's starting to feel like we need a reboot. Maybe we get a bombshell put in, but it's like this rich chubby dude that gets put into the house that's just for Leah, and then we put we put all three of them in a room. Cam says he's cutting off Leah at this point. We'll see. We'll see. I don't know. But definitely he's tired of everybody kind of pointing at them because it's causing issues for him inside the Pentagon and the collective now because of how close he is with Leah. Cedric's telling him he's got to cut it off. Chelsea's telling him he's got to cut it off. So we'll see. We'll see how that all goes. Other kind of things going on. Brooklyn and Takor, they don't trust Cam because of all this kind of stuff. Plus, he was denying there was a guys alliance thing before this, whereas Cedric, they feel like was telling the truth about a lot of stuff. And it's true, right? Cam, I think, was actually way more into this whole guys alliance thing than Cedric ever was, right? He felt like he was always trying to find a way out of this, and it was like an option, sure. Like it's like we always talk about in Big Brother, if somebody offers you alliance, you say yes, right? Like you don't say no. But I don't think this was ever really an actual thing that Cedric wanted to do. It was just like it's an option on the table. Anytime there is an option, you have to at least evaluate it, take into consideration, right? Like, hey, this is new information we got about Quinn. The power is kind of a messed up thing. He hasn't been telling us about it. Maybe we do go with Tucker and Kenney. Maybe we do this thing. But I think in the long run, Cedric always saw it as it was just way too messy and it was even more blood on his hands, which again, it would have been. Putting Quinn up would have been the bloodiest option possible for Cedric. What ended up happening was actually kind of the least bloody option for him. MJ also, though, does think that Cedric was gunning for her. When really, again, it was like just kind of a thing where he'd rather actually patch things up, right? He only was kind of pushing this because it was the whole power thing, and he felt like if he did this, he didn't have to put the Renom up. He wasn't taking a shot at Quinn, and he couldn't really put up Leah because that's also taking shots at people, and it was an issue. I think Leah actually probably would have been overall Cam's easiest option, and it's also someone that Cedric wants out. So it would have been helpful in a lot of different ways. Plus, it probably would have had this whole like blow up. Though with the whole Tucker thing, not even agreeing at all that Cedric told him to stop, it's a thing, right? So it's tough. Kenney, he was apparently at some point told, stop saying you want to go home. If you keep saying you want to go home, you're getting kicked out and you're not getting paid. So I think that's a big reason why Kenney over the last 48 hours has actually started to play the game more and at least put on a show that he wants to play the game more. How much of that is again him saying stuff for strategy? I don't know. That actually sounds pretty legit. But we'll see. And after that, Cedric lots of things are floating around, lots of different convos. Cedric eventually is like, you know what? Let me go grab something from the back room. And he happened to walk in on Tucker talking to a bunch of the others. And it turned it turned into our next contest of the evening, young Cedric versus the Ace of Ventura, the Truman of the show, the only real chef on BB26, Tucker. What a battle this one was. Basically, Tucker was saying that Cedric didn't tell him not to use it. Cedric did. And it was really just kind of back and forth of Cedric being like, I tried to tell you not to use it. And Tucker didn't want to hear. He's like, you didn't tell me nothing. He starts talking about the ball players and the shakers and the shaker club and the ball player club. And he just starts naming all the fake alliances over and over. Eventually, though, he's like, Cedric, I'm coming after you. Like, I'm gunning for you. You're my number one target. Don't talk to me for the rest of the week. Cedric was actually staying pretty chill during a lot of this, but he then later like vented and let it all out in the backyard after the fact. Tucker was calmed down by Rubina, the Tucker whisperer, and she was she was like, listen, ooh, that was a bit much. And he's like, I haven't been sleeping well, right? And it's been rough. It's been rough. And he's like, I didn't go that bad, right? It's like I didn't call him any names. And Rubina goes, well, you called him an MFer. And he's like, well, what's wrong with that? Not like I called him an idiot or something. I just called him an MFer. which which like it's I don't know. There's just something funny where he's like, I didn't call him an idiot. I just called him an MFer. that's that's all I did. I love it. I love it. Him and Cedric, though, again, I mentioned that a lot of these fights all kind of, made a little bit of amends later. Him and Cedric had a little bro hug action, look, it's all good. So they kind of made up later after they both calmed down. But then, after more conversations here and there, we head to our main event of the evening, hailing from Boston, Massachusetts, the food truck Kappa, Kenney versus the baddest mom on the planet, Brooklyn. This one was another great fight. And listen, when I say fight, like it wasn't too crazy, but it was definitely like a confrontation, and definitely fun to watch. This one was all about Kenney thinking that there was a girls' alliance and that Brooklyn was kind of the head of it, which kind of true, right? Just a little bit true. There is a girls' alliance and Brooklyn is in it. I don't know if she's necessarily the head of it, but like she's part of it. It was in the same ring, it was in the kitchen, and there were some that were sitting ringside, right? Joe was there, TK was there, Angela was there, Leah was there, while others, they were up in the nosebleed section, aka the backyard, but they were trying to like listen in at the door. And at one point, because there was a lot that happened. At one point, Kenney was saying how Quinn was the one who approached him with an alliance, and he was talking about how he's like, listen, I don't talk game with a lot of different people. Like for example, I don't talk game to T-Core, and that's because if I would have won HOH, I was going to put T-Core up. I was going to put Joseph up. I was going to put Angela up. And it's like, bro, they're all right there. It's not even like he said people that weren't in the room. It's literally the people that were all in the room with him watching. He's like, yeah, I was going to put them all up. Yeah, they're watching this right now, but I was going to put them all up. T-Core ends up leaving eventually after this conversation, after like a good while. But the conversation kept going. But as she headed on out, like I said, people were standing and crouched by the sliding glass door. So she goes to open it, and And Chelsea, who literally is like ear to the door, curled up next to it, she's got a like tactical roll out of the way. It was fantastic. After this, it did end with again like a little hug, like no hard feelings kind of a thing. Brooklyn was like, I didn't even come bother talking to you. Like the only reason this is coming up is because you're coming to talk to me. I didn't even bother with this because I didn't care. So they kind of hugged it out and it was whatever. Brooklyn had like a retell of the story in the backyard. It was kind of funny because Tucker did this earlier and everybody just kind of gathered around like to hear. They were like, "Ooh, what's the story?" When they were all eavesdropping, they all know what happened. They just wanted a good story. Other than that, though, that's kind of where the fights really kind of ended. But there's still so much aftermath and so much to break down here. We had Chelsea and Cedric kind of meeting up and chatting, trying to see where each other's heads are at. They feel like they got to stick with the Pentagon. They got to stick with the collective. They have a kind of a rough boot order that they'd like to see Tucker or Kenney go this week. Cedric would rather Tucker go. Chelsea would rather Kenney go, but they're interchangeable. MJ and Angela in the next 2 weeks. Cedric would rather actually, if he could, he'd like to actually kind of repair that relationship with MJ, but she can go if she wants. Chelsea kind of would rather see MJ go earlier. Angela also, like, they kind of see them as interchangeable, right? Whoever goes MJ, Angela the next 2 weeks, that's fine too. Then after that, Leah and then also Rubina has to go as well. They do talk about how tired they are of Leah and how he's telling her too much still. We've been talking about it. He says he's cutting her off. We'll see. And I wouldn't be surprised if Leah like kind of bumps up on that boot order just because of their fear of Cam having too much of a open dialogue with her. Too much information is spilling out about alliances. At one point, apparently, he even told her like, "I'm in another alliance," but didn't tell her who was in it. Didn't tell her how many people or the name of it or anything. But just way too much info getting spread out there. We did also mention how Quinn and Joseph had a conversation the other day where Quinn seemingly told him about the Pentagon. I don't know how much he actually told him about it or if he was just alluding to the idea that Chelsea, Cam, and Cedric had a kind of a trio thing, and they're the reason why Brooklyn was brought in, and that the other like kind of underdog alliance that they had going on with Rubina, if like that was just kind of like a backup thing. Like the conversation was cut off. It was short on what we actually did get to hear of that one the other day. But today was kind of interesting because after all of this, again, I don't know if he's ever told Joseph the name, but at one point they're talking about it, and for the most part, I think Joseph understands that Quinn was just kind of doing his thing, right? Like didn't tell him. Like I don't know if he's that bothered by it. We heard him give the excuse to Cedric. But one of the things I heard him say was Quinn was like, "Yeah, and I'll just, tell the others, the what do you call it? The penta the collective." And he said like the penta. And I don't know if if he never told him the name of the penta, that could be like a thing that kind of sparks up in Joseph. I'm not 100% sure, but we'll see with that. We'll see. Um, some other things that we saw: TK and Chemo, good old Core and Chemo. Again, one of the probably the closest duos in the game, but one of the big questions I had way before this all blew up was why has Chemo never told to Core that Quinn has a power? Chemo is known for a while. He told Tucker because he has a crush on Tucker. But why would Chemo never had told to Core? I just didn't understand why. Maybe he had some doubts about how close she was, that maybe she was closer with Chelsea, Cam, and Cedric, that kind of, whole group thing that was going on. And maybe he actually did buy into that a little bit. So he didn't want to give her all the information. Maybe he was just trying to save her from that. All I know is now afterwards, the vibe is off. It is awkward with the two of them. You can tell there's just this like sadness and distrust that's there, right? Like a lot of trust was broken between the two of them. And maybe it's just that it's still raw and they're kind of, trying to get over it. but it almost feels like a marriage where, like, you know, they had a falling out, but they have kids and a mortgage, and they just gotta, like, stick together at least for, like, a few more years until the kids are off to college. Then they can kinda, separate and do their thing. But it feels like they almost feel forced to kinda stick together and kinda ride this out because they don't really have any other options, and they're already so tied together. But definitely this was something that caused an issue between the two of them. They talk about how they need to clear the air with Quinn because while a lot of it was told to them, they're a little confused on why he didn't tell them about the guys thing. He kind of didn't tell them, I guess. He told like a group, like Joseph was there, like other members of the collective too. So I guess maybe they were never filled in on that, but I guess that's something he can do. He can be like, hey, ask Joseph. Like I told Joseph about it. Maybe Joseph can kind of have his back on it. But they still have questions there about that of also why he didn't tell them, right? Like that's still an issue. And T Core was the one who brought that up, which if she's still got issues about why Quinn didn't tell them or any of the collective really other than chemo, that means that she's got an issue with chemo not telling her. But she never said that in the conversation. Chemo did apologize. I think chemo really picked up on it and apologized, but it's definitely something that's causing some strife there. They also have questions about Cam and Cedric too, because of the whole guys alliance thing. Cam was much more dishonest about the whole situation. Cedric was a little bit more honest, but there's still question marks. Obviously, they were trying to work with Tucker, but now Quinn and Tucker will never work together, so that's still an issue. Boy, there is a lot going on. And I feel like I'm only scratching the surface of like really getting into the deep end of this thing because there was so much going on. It was juicy yesterday. Where are we at though? What are some takeaways? I do have a brand new allegiance chart, and it honestly might surprise you a little bit. Because while things change, other things stay very much the same. Let's take a look. So, Quinn might be okay. Cedric might be okay. Cam's actually getting a lot of heat from this. So, Quinn, I feel like a lot of people in the collective, a lot of people in the Pentagon, all are kind of like, you know what? He was doing a lot of lying. He did have a lot of final twos and stuff. He never exposed us, right? As far as they all know, the only person who had ever gotten anything about the Pentagon outside of the Pentagon, I believe he told Chemo and T-Core, right? They knew about it, but nothing was exposed there. And I believe he just told Joseph about it, but nothing was exposed from that. So he's never told anyone else outside of that, and nothing came out about that. So they actually end up thinking, you know what? Yeah, he was playing everybody else, and he didn't tell us about the power, which they kind of still have some issues with, but they also kind of get, right? The idea of like if you were in that position, would you want to tell? I feel like what's not being brought up a lot is the fact that Angela was told, but then I think they kind of forgot that Angela was told and knows. I don't know. It feels like that's something that got lost in the weeds here. Because that would be an issue for me if I found out that Angela knew. But also, it's fairly easy for Quinn to even squash that because he's like, yeah, I was trying to work with Angela with the collective, and she was the first one I told. And then the next morning, she was going crazy. So I felt really scared to tell anybody else because now it was like, oh no, now she knows and she's going nuts. So I feel like he can kind of really talk himself out of it. And he's done actually a pretty good job of that so far. It seems like a lot of them do trust him. Obviously, he's not good with people like Tucker, uh, MJ, Kenney, even Angela would probably end up voting him up. Leah is probably still okay. She's playing a little bit of both sides, but she was throwing him under the bus to Cam. But again, I think that was all just to kind of keep herself safe in desperate times when she thought maybe she was going up. Rubina, he's probably lost a little bit of trust with as well because she's so close with Tucker. But if Tucker ends up leaving, I think he can kind of fix that relationship there too. So overall, I think he's okay. Same thing really with Cedric, right? This all could have went really bad for him. And a lot of the heat that he probably should be getting, he's not because he was actually fairly honest with a lot of it, right? Like he never really did buy into the whole like guys alliance thing, and he was fairly upfront about all that. He says he wish he, caught the chance to tell people before it happened, but it was just kind of like, oh, like what am I supposed to do? And a lot of it, people are also just going like, you know what? Young Cedric, he tried, right? Like he tried to tell Tucker. They kind of believe him on that. They're like, you know what? I think in his way, he tried to make it not go bad, but it just happened. So they're almost letting him off the hook. Whereas Cam, a lot of people feel like, you know what? We kind of confronted him on the guys thing and he didn't own up to it. They feel like the whole Leah situation is really an issue. So it feels like actually Cam took a lot of heat and is taking a bit of a hit from this, whereas Cedric is kind of getting off with it. He seems like he's okay. Um, Brooklyn pretty much stays where she is. I think, I lowered her down a little bit under Chemo and T-Core, just because I feel like, with the whole thing, like if Kenney happens to stay and would win, he would go after her. But other than that, like I feel like she's really in a good spot. Chemo, T-Core, Brooklyn, Cedric, Chelsea are all really at like the same kind of level. And then Quinn's only just a little bit, I think, below them, right? Obviously, once you get into the collective, he's towards the bottom of it, but I still feel like Joseph would be towards the bottom of it. And I think there's still a lot of people in the collective that would also look at Cam before they would look at Quinn as well as a potential target. Other than that, Rubina takes a little bit of hit. She's still seen as kind of a target for, people on the core side, the triple C with Cedric, Chelsea, and Cam. Over on the visionary side, she's still really good with them, though. So that's kind of where she's fitting in. Again, Joseph and Cam, I think they're kind of at the same spots where both of them would be looked at before someone like even a Quinn would get looked at as a potential nominee. Leia as well getting thrown around there. Angela actually comes up a little bit here. I think, and this is where, the whole like social credit, right? There's a reason I have it in quotes there. And while I don't necessarily think she gained social credit, I think so many people lost social credit that she starts to float up. And I think if she makes it through the next few evictions, right? Let's say we see Kenney go this week, or even Tucker go this week. Next week, the other one goes. Maybe MJ or Leah goes. If she, I feel like Angela's going to make the jury with everything the way it's going. And then once all those dominoes start to fall, then they start going, wait a minute, do we go after Angela or do we take that shot at Quinn? Do we go after Angela or do we take that shot at Cam? Do we go after Angela or maybe we take a big shot? We go after Chelsea or Cedric. Do you see where I'm going with this? I think Angela might be making jury and might be making it pretty far in this game. I'm just going to be honest. I feel like once she's there, they're going to be like, she's here anyway. Let's just drag her. You got to deal with her in the jury house. Just keep her around. And there's a chance Angela could go very far. If she could just make it past these next few, if she's got those other options, I think if she can outlive Tucker and Kenney, I think there's a very strong chance Angela makes it to at least week 6. And then once week 6 comes, that's when you can start going, all right, wait a minute. Do we take a shot right here? Do we take a shot or do we let it ride? And that could be interesting. Other than that, too, I still see it at the end of the day, kind of like the visionaries versus the core triple C. You got Brooklyn kind of in the middle, Joseph kind of in the middle. On either side, too, what's interesting is you got Rubina on one side. The other side of the house there, the triple C, Cedric, Chelsea, and Cam, and again, sides in quotation, because right now they're kind of all on the same side. What they really should be doing is using that connection that Cam has with Leah and pulling her over. Make Leah your Rubina, right? But they don't see it. They see more of the issue that Cam leaks all the information to her. Whereas you can fix that if you just bring her in. If you bring her into the group, doesn't matter if she says anything, right? She doesn't have to be in the larger group. Make a foursome. Make a little foursome there. And you can start giving her information and have it not feel like this tension and issues, right? And give her a home. Because especially now that Tucker and Kenney are the kind of the big targets, MJ right after that, she's going to need a home, and you're going to need some numbers here in a bit. Once the battle lines really start happening, because here's the thing, what this all did today, if anything, has made the collective and made the Pentagon stronger. Is even it's also made I think some cracks in the visionaries, but I think at the end of the day, it's going to make the visionaries stronger. As crazy as that sounds, I think that's what's going to end up happening here. But yeah, it's wild. We also, at this point though, we're all assuming, yeah, Kenney or Tucker. But you know what? Who's going up? And everyone seems to have agreed. Whoever goes up as America's veto, they are going to be the pawn. They'll just be safe. And it's easy to say that when it's kind of Schrodinger's nom, right? Once it's confirmed, though, because it could be anybody right now. Anyone could be the nom. The only ones who are safe, Cedric, Angela, Tucker and Kenney are obviously already on the block. MJ's safe. Everybody else is an option. Once that nominee is named, there could be some different thoughts on who needs to go this week. There are some candidates that might be the leading ones in my eyes, but it's also hard to really nail down who the options are, because once you get into these public votes, it's not really the hardcore fans, right? It's the TV watchers, the casuals, who really are the large majority who end up voting in these things. And sometimes they might just vote for somebody because they're not on TV a lot. We talked about Rubina kind of having that worry. I've seen a lot of names floated around as potential options. And what's interesting is a lot of them are the ones that are kind of on the underneath of everybody, right? Like Joseph. Cam's name I've heard thrown around. Leah's name I've heard thrown around. Quinn's name is on there too as well. I think if I had to name like the big ones, I don't think Chemo's going to have an issue. But again, how much has he been on the episodes? A bit, right? He was nominee in the first week and he won the AI arena, so we might have some fans there. But do people love him enough or hate him enough to vote? I'm not sure. Same thing with T-Core. I could see maybe like there being people who like don't even know her, but I feel like for the most part, that could actually be good. But because there's so many options, maybe the votes are spread out enough that, hey, there's enough people that look at the board and go, you know what? Rubina's not doing anything, right? Like, why shouldn't I just vote her? Everybody else is at least entertaining. And I'm not 100% sure where this vote's going to go. We did do a poll, and I forgot to check it. Let me check this poll here that we put up on the channel, just with 4 options to try and get an idea. I wanted to see what people were kind of thinking, and if I can pull up the post here and get this link. I think I can pop it over here, and we can take a look and see what you guys were thinking. And actually, I mean, seems like you guys were pretty definitive that you think Quinn, of these 4 at least, would be the most likely to be voted in. Again, smallish sample size, only about 1,000, almost 2,000 votes there, 1,700 votes. But Quinn with 49% of this one, with Joseph, Leah, and Chemo I put on there too, just as an option because I wasn't sure who else that 4th one would be. I've heard a lot of people saying Cam now could be an option. I thought that Joseph and Quinn would be the top 2 vote getters. Joseph not getting that many. Lots of people going for Leah, which I found kind of interesting too. Just another kind of person that I thought maybe an option. But it ended up being those 2 that would win. I guess maybe what I can do too is even put up another poll where we try Quinn, Leah, Cam. Maybe throw Cam in there. Let me know, who are some of your top ones. I'll go through some of the comments. I'll see who kind of the majority are saying, and we'll try another poll. We'll put another poll up with some other options on potential nominees. As far as the vote, I have not heard a single thing yet. What I believe is going to happen is Wednesday's episode, we're going to see it all go down. and we'll find out that, you know, the veto was used and it's time to vote. And then we'll have about 24 hours there to vote and figure out what's going on. But yeah, it's going to be wild. Who do you guys think is going to end up on the block? What do you think of all of these crazy fights and blow ups? Thank you guys all so much for watching. If you are new here, hit that subscribe button. If you like this video, if you made it all the way to the end of this video, smash that like button, hit that notification bell. You'll never miss a video. You'll never miss a stream. Check out the links to all of my socials in the description down below. Pin comment, things like Twitch, Twitter, Discord, Kick. The Discord's been a lot of fun. We're always chatting in there. There's a bunch of people still chatting in there right now as I'm recording this. A bunch of people are all chatting in there being like, what are you doing? It's like, I'm recording the episode for you guys, getting this all ready for the morning. Thank you guys again so much for watching, and I will see you next time.
Decor. The freak is wrong with you. The freak. The freak. Decor. Read the room.